4 in the afternoon, Texas highway breathing heat like a furnace, empty lanes, big sky, me alone in a black SUV with FBI stamped on the doors and a thermos of coffee. I should have left on the kitchen counter and then the mirror filled with red and blue, 1 cruiser, then 2, then 4 lights bouncing in the glass like a bad omen. You can't outdrive, so I eased to the shoulder hazards on hands where they could see and told myself stay calm, breathe. Let them do the script they pretend is about safety. Boots hit, gravel doors slammed, the lead cop strutted up like the sun owed him money. Name tag, red Kelvin voice already sitting on the wrong side of the line. Put the weapon down. Who are you transporting? And before my answer even left my mouth, he leaned toward the badge on my chest like it was a costume, not a career. So I raised it higher, gold catching the light. Special Agent Maya Moore, federal duty, and he smiled. The kind of smile that tells you he thinks the law is whatever comes easy to him. Not buying it, he said, and with a short radio burst behind me, someone killed the helicopter feed. The highway went quiet, in that heavy way that means a decision is coming. Then his shove hit my shoulder, then the gun cracked. Hot air, hotter pain. My badge hit asphalt and skittered toward the white line while I tried not to tip. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You just shot a federal agent," and he tilted his head like he was testing how brave I really was. "Welcome to Texas." He said, "Yeah, that happened." By sundown, my name was already on a chyron. I didn't write "Unstable Agent Escalates Traffic Stop." The kind of headline that tells you the footage was cut to match the mouth talking over it, not the other way around. The governor shook Kelvin's hand for cameras. The bureau suspended me for optics, and I sat in a hospital room with my shoulder burning and the TV telling me I had become a threat to public order, you know what I mean, like the world flipped its mirror and asked me to apologize for the reflection. So when the call came that said report to internal review at 9 sharp, I went, not because I thought they'd listen, but because places like that hate to be forced to hear a sentence out loud. The conference room had that smell of coffee toner and disinfectant that says decisions were made here long before anyone walked in. The regional director, Marlon Graves, twirled a pen like he was timing a slow leak. "Maya," he said, "we understand the pressure, but without clear recording, we can't support your version. So I asked the only question worth asking. You suspended me because I'm wrong or because I'm inconvenient?" And the silence told the truth. No memo with procedure is a blanket week. Men pull over a bleeding wound, so I signed the paper that said, "Go home and be quiet." Then I didn't go home. I drove. Theo lived out past the Beltway, a surveillance tech who once saved a rack of evidence off a failing server by routing it to a backup. He never admitted existed. His house was a war room made of sticky notes, tangled cables, and a whiteboard you could get lost in. He opened the door with worry already in his eyes. "You really picked the hornet nest," he said, and I said, "They already stung. Help me find the hive." So he slid a drive into a reader and the screen stuttered through static until a voice cut clean through the noise. "Kelvin's flat and cold. Cut the feed. Do not let that woman walk out alive." And we both froze, not because we were surprised, but because hearing the words in the man's own voice is heavier than reading any report. "That's enough to blow the hinges off a courtroom door," Theo said. "But let's pull the rest. There's a temp cache I set up on their network in case something smelled dirty." And then the kitchen window exploded. The room jumped. Theo took a bullet to the chest and sat down, like the floor had suddenly changed its mind. I caught him and he shoved a small body cam unit into my hand. "Copper folder. My backup. If I don't make it, let the tape talk." His fingers slipped, his eyes didn't, and I said something I meant with everything I had left. "Then it will not shut up." Boots pounded the hallway. I slid out the back, hopped a fence, and ran through the kind of night where every shadow is a question, and every siren is an answer you don't want. Rook's cabin sat 3 hours north under pine canopy, thick enough to make the day feel like a secret. He's one of those ghosts who leaves fingerprints only when he wants the right person to see them. A hacker who laughs at locks and hates speeches more than the people who give them. He looked at the bandage on my shoulder, the body cam in my palm, the stubborn in my eyes, and said, "I prefer chess to miracles," and I said, "Good." Because I brought a board. He plugged in the unit code, began to fall down the monitors like rain. "That line," he said, pointing, "that's not just cutting a stream. That's a full spoof of device IDs. Someone upstairs taught them the trick." I said one word, "Cobalt," and he asked if I knew what I was stepping into. "Yeah," I said, "but I'm already in the first clean image rendered Kelvin at my window. Finger on the trigger, the words again, "Cut the feed." Nobody sees her alive. And Rook pulled in audio fingerprints metadata network hops. "You've got authenticity," he said, enough to scare the big boys, not enough to crush them. Then the power dipped twice. That professional. Hello. A drone of engines in the trees. A loudspeaker telling me to come out with my hands raised. Rook yanked a USB and shoved it at me. "Not all of it, but enough to make them sweat," he said, "split and survive." So I did back through the woods, down gravel that tried to eat my shoes, toward a place nobody had cared about since the 80s, where the wind sang through peeled metal and the floor smelled like old oil and regret. The abandoned depot gave me what the courtroom wouldn't time to set a dead man trigger heartbeat monitor tied to a broadcast routine Rook wrote in an hour and could have improved in a week if mine stopped. The files would fly to a dozen nodes and land on any screen that would take them. I sent Kelvin a ping because sometimes the only way to make a man show his face is to tell him he already has. He came with 2 SUVs, 2 cruisers, and that smirk that says he still believes cameras bend to rank. I stood next to a table with a laptop humming, my shoulder on fire, my voice cold. "You can't stop what you already started." "Kelvin?" He aimed at the laptop and said, "You want a last word?" "Agent." And I said, "I already wrote it." Then I pressed enter the transmitter. Chirped green. He fired my vest, caught some, my chest, took the rest. I slid down the wall and found myself looking up at a ceiling that was deciding whether to hold, and I smiled because the word on the screen turned bright and final. Transmission complete. Outside tires screamed, news vans arrived, the world lit up with a clip that shouldn't exist, and a sentence nobody could pretend they misheard. Cut the feed. Do not let that woman walk out alive. Yeah, that happened. And it played on phones and TVs and courthouse monitors, and it burned through excuses faster than the fire racing across the oil-stained floor. They cuffed me anyway, took me to a holding room where time pretends to be a circle. The TV showed Kelvin in a suit, a medal on his chest. The anchor called him a hero, and I laughed once. Not because it was funny, because my body needed to make a sound that wasn't a groan. A guard slid in a tray, and under it a note in a hand. I knew by the way the letters leaned. Leon backup 07. Not Theo's name, but his courage. He had funneled one more message through a place I could reach, even while chained. Next interrogation. I watched the room's terminal blink to life, typed in a code. My fingers remembered better than my head, and a window opened on a meeting I never got invited to. Kelvin reporting to a silhouette, and a voice smoother than polished stone. Marlon Graves, my own regional director. "It's cleaned up," Kelvin said. "Only she's left." And Graves replied, "Ensure 0 leaks. I'll handle upstairs." And in that instant, the story got bigger than a bad stop and a rotten cop. It became a system with an appetite and a script. You know what I mean? The kind where procedure launders, violence, and press releases scrub blood until it looks like courage. An independent station in Mesa Springs published the metadata and the route maps, and people started asking louder questions than the ones they bury under committee carpets. So they called a hearing because a room full of microphones is where power goes when it wants to pretend it is not afraid. The chamber carried that cold hum of cameras and AC, and polished stone senators sat tall, staffers moved like chess pieces. Kelvin put his hand on a book and did his line. I followed protocol to protect the community, and when it was my turn, I didn't speak long. I tapped the modified watch Rook had set to a local trigger, and the screen behind me bloomed with the ugly truth they had tried to edit out of the record. Body cam timestamps, network logs, Kelvin's words, Graves's orders, a whole branching set of cobalt files that showed how often the stream goes dark, right before the story turns, and layered in the corner was an authentication tag. Leon, backup, 07. My breath stuck on the name. My voice kept moving. Truth doesn't need me to dress it up. I said it just needs space. Listen, and for once they did. Kelvin lunged toward a mic and shouted deepfake, but 3 labs had already signed the chain of custody, and a counsel with a backbone read the findings into the record. The room shifted. You can feel that the moment group certainty stumbles. Security cuffed Kelvin while he was still explaining why handcuffs were a misunderstanding. Graves sat pale, then red, then something in between, that looks like a man wondering how long leaks take to become floods. Charges rolled out, abuse of power, evidence tampering, attempted murder conspiracy, all the words that try to climb the same hill and sit next to justice. And when a reporter later asked if I felt vindicated, I said vindicated belongs to cake and coupons. I want policy training names and timestamps that never get erased again. They gave me my badge back with an apology that sounded like a legal disclaimer. Reinstated smile for the photo, and I took it because the rooms I needed to search still required that little piece of metal. I visited Leon's mother on a Tuesday and brought daisies like the ones she used to put in his lunchbox the first month he wore a uniform. Funny, what moms remember. We stood at his marker while the wind moved through the grass, and I set my old badge at the base for a second just to feel the weight leave my palm. Then I picked it up again because heavy things are easier to carry when you accept they are yours. Rook texted me from a number that deletes itself. Knight to e5, he always thinks in chess. I think in voices. I hear Kelvin's line even now when I pass a cruiser on a quiet street. Cut the feed. Nobody sees her alive. Then I hear Leon. If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it. But the truth did, and that's the voice I choose to follow. A year passes and headlines say justice was served, Kelvin gets 25, Graves gets indicted, other names you don't know yet start appearing in small type that grows bigger as the days go. The Bureau stands up the Leon Rains unit to reopen cases. Someone stamped closed for convenience, and people ask me if this is a happy ending, and I tell them it's an honest one, which is better. Because the problem with happy endings is they make you think the credits roll and the work is over. But the work is the point. Cameras are not justice, people are footage is a witness, not a verdict. The truth still needs a body to stand behind it and breathe while the room gets hot, you know what I mean? So I keep showing up, I keep pushing for body cam rules that default to daylight. I keep fighting for training where cutting a feed is a career ender, not a tactic. I keep telling young agents the part that doesn't make it onto inspirational posters. You are going to lose friends and sleep and a version of yourself you didn't even know you were holding on to. And if you are lucky, you will gain a spine you can hear when you walk, click step choice. People want neat bows, they want the villain hauled off and the hero backlit by sunrise, and sure the cuffs clicked, and the crowd outside the hearing chanted, "Truth lives," and the daisies at Leon's stone smelled like clean air. And my son ran into my arms outside the courthouse and asked if bad men ever become good when they see themselves on a big screen, and I told him no. And also sometimes because honesty sits somewhere between math and faith. Then we went for burgers, and I tried not to wince when he asked if I would wear my vest forever. Yeah, that happened, and we laughed because laughing helps you breathe when the speeches stop. So here's where I leave it, not with a trumpet, but with an invite, because the end of my story is the start of a conversation we keep avoiding until it knocks on our window at 4 p.m. in a heat wave. Tell me below where the line is between safety and power in your town. Tell me if body cam footage should be public by default or sealed until trial. Tell me whether you've watched a narrative get flipped in real time and what you did when you saw it drop. Your city, drop your story. Argue with me. If you have to, just keep it honest. Because justice doesn't need our protection, it needs our participation. And if anyone ever tells you to cut the feed, remember, that's your headline, not your cue to be quiet.